I still remember the moment my phone buzzed, a soft vibration that would change everything I thought I knew about my life. It was a message from Alex, my husband of 10 years. At first, I smiled absently, expecting a quick, "I'll be home late" or "don't wait up." But when I opened it, my heart dropped. "I don't love you anymore. I want a divorce. From now on, all communication will go through my lawyer." That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just a cold, detached message that ended a decade of marriage in less than 30 words. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, waiting for more, another text that would say, "I'm sorry, wrong message," or "this isn't what it looks like," but nothing came. My fingers trembled as I typed back, "What are you talking about?" No reply. I called him. Once. Twice. Over and over. Each time, it went straight to voicemail. Alex was supposed to be at work, or at least that's what I'd believed. We hadn't fought, not recently. There were no sleepless nights filled with shouting, no slammed doors or silent treatments. We weren't perfect, but we were stable. I believed we were solid. So why was he ending our marriage like this? Confusion gave way to panic, then to anger. 10 years together, and he couldn't even look me in the eye. No conversation, no closure. Just a text message and a lawyer. Still, a part of me clung to hope. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe he was overwhelmed, or something had happened at work. But something about the wording, "From now on all contact will go through my lawyer," felt wrong. It was too formal. Too deliberate. Like it had been planned. My gut twisted with unease. Something was off. And so, against the pounding of my heart, I decided to make a call, not to Alex, but to the lawyer he mentioned. The line rang twice before a calm, polished voice answered. "This is David Green. How can I help you?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "David, it's Kelly Carter. Alex just sent me a message saying he wants a divorce. You're his lawyer, right?" For a moment, there was silence. Too long. A hesitation that prickled at my nerves. Then I heard him exhale sharply, as though something had just gone terribly wrong. "Mrs. Carter," he said slowly, his tone now tight, cautious, almost alarmed. "Are you saying Alex has already filed for divorce?" A cold chill ran through me. Why was he asking me that? I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "This, shouldn't you already know?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "I don't know if he's filed yet," I added quickly. "All I got was a text, saying it's over, and that all communication needs to go through you." There was another pause. Then suddenly, the calm professionalism in David's tone cracked. "God damn it, Alex, you idiot," he shouted, not at me, but at someone in the background. My stomach clenched. I heard papers shuffling, a chair scraping against the floor, and then muffled voices. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. When David spoke again, his voice was lower now, strained and urgent. "Listen to me carefully, Kelly. Have you signed anything? Any documents at all?" My fingers tightened around the phone. "No. Nothing. Just the text." "Good," he said sharply. "Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And for the love of God, don't talk to Alex." My pulse thundered in my ears. "What's going on?" I demanded. "Why are you yelling?" A door slammed on his end, followed by the muffled sound of more voices, hurried, tense. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. He was whispering now, every word clipped and deliberate. "Kelly. I'm not supposed to be telling you this," he said, his voice tight with conflict, "but your husband has been keeping secrets from you. Huge secrets. If he divorces you before you find out, he keeps everything." A cold chill crept down my spine. "Find out what?" I whispered. "What secrets?" David exhaled heavily, the sound full of frustration and dread. "Look, I need to go," he said quickly. "But listen, Alex screwed up, big time. And if he sent that message before I could finalize everything, then you still have a shot at getting what you're owed." "Owed?" I repeated, my heart racing. "David, what am I owed?" But the line suddenly went dead. For a moment, all I could do was stare at my phone in disbelief. I had called expecting the usual legal formality, maybe a polite confirmation or some coldly worded instructions. Instead, I got panic. Fear. Secrets. Something inside me twisted. This wasn't just a marriage ending, it was a setup. Alex hadn't simply left me. He was hiding something. And now, before he erased every trace of it, I had to uncover the truth. I tightened my grip on the phone, David's last words echoing in my head. Your husband has been keeping secrets from you. If he divorces you before you find out, he keeps everything. Whatever Alex was trying to bury, I was going to dig it up, no matter what it cost me. I read Alex's text again, the words blurring and sharpening in cycles as if my mind refused to accept them. But now, after that call with David, the message felt different. It wasn't just a cold, detached goodbye anymore, it felt calculated, like a move in a game I didn't know I was playing. I had spent 10 years building a life with this man, a home, memories, trust, and now, in a few minutes, it all felt like a carefully constructed illusion. Who was he, really? Every instinct screamed at me to call him, to demand answers. But David's warning echoed in my head, don't talk to Alex. So instead, I focused on what I could do, get information. I began pacing across the living room, my thoughts spinning as I retraced the past few months. Had there been signs I'd ignored? Late nights at the office, unexplained business trips, the growing distance between us that I'd chalked up to stress. Alex worked in finance, managing investments, complex portfolios, and clients I never met. He'd always been a bit secretive about money, brushing off my questions with, "You wouldn't understand the details." Back then, I'd let it go. But now, it all felt suspicious. Was this what David had meant? Was Alex hiding something, maybe something financial, that could ruin me if I didn't uncover it first? I needed to talk to someone who knew his world better than I did. My fingers hovered over my phone screen before landing on a name that made my chest tighten, Lisa. Lisa had been Alex's assistant for years, sharp, professional, loyal. We weren't close, but she'd always treated me kindly at company events. If anyone knew what Alex was up to, it would be her. The phone rang once, twice, and then I heard her voice. Kelly? Hey, this is unexpected. Hi, Lisa, I said, trying to keep my tone casual though my pulse was pounding. Sorry to call out of nowhere. Have you talked to Alex today? There was a pause. Too long. Then she said carefully, "Oh no. Not really." Why? Is everything okay? I swallowed, forcing the tremor from my voice. He texted me this morning. Said he wants a divorce. Out of nowhere. Told me all communication should go through his lawyer. On the other end, Lisa inhaled sharply, a sound that made my heart sink. Oh. Just that one word, but it said everything. That's not the reaction I was expecting, I said slowly. You knew, didn't you? Another silence followed, heavier this time. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, conflicted. I had a feeling something was going on, she admitted. He's been acting strange for weeks. My stomach twisted. Strange how? Lisa hesitated. Then she exhaled, as if deciding she couldn't keep it in any longer. Secretive, she said. There were meetings he didn't want anyone to log. Calls taken behind closed doors. He even told me to delete certain files from the company server a few days ago, said they were personal. A chill ran through me. Files? Deleted records. This wasn't just about a marriage falling apart, it was about something Alex didn't want found. And whatever he was hiding, I had the sinking feeling that I was at the center of it. Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper, her words coming slowly, carefully. He started making a lot of wire transfers, she said, to an account I didn't recognize. Large amounts. Regularly. A chill crept up my spine. What kind of transfers? Hundreds of thousands at first, she said. Then millions. And last week, she hesitated. Last week what? I urged, my pulse pounding. I overheard him on the phone with someone. I don't know who, it wasn't a client, at least not one I've heard before. But he said, she trailed off, her voice trembling slightly. He said, once she signs, it's all mine. She won't even know what she lost. My breath caught. Once she signs, it's all mine. The words echoed in my head like a gunshot. A cold wave of realization washed over me. This wasn't just a sudden divorce. It was strategy. Alex wasn't walking away, he was cutting me out. Of something big. Lisa, thank you, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm even though my hands were shaking. I have to go. I ended the call and stood frozen for a moment, staring blankly at the living room wall as everything clicked into place. The secretiveness. The lawyer's panic. The carefully worded message. Alex wasn't just ending our marriage, he was erasing me from whatever he'd built behind my back. Heart hammering, I made my way to his home office. It still smelled faintly of his cologne, sharp and clean, like nothing had changed, but everything had. I moved to the mahogany desk, the one he used every night. He'd switched most of his work to digital files, but I knew he still kept physical records locked in a bottom drawer. And I knew the code. I knelt down, punched in the numbers, our wedding anniversary, and heard the familiar click. The drawer slid open. Inside were stacks of neatly organized folders, financial statements, legal documents, bank reports, all labeled in Alex's meticulous handwriting. My hands trembled as I sifted through them, scanning line after line until one document stopped me cold. A bank statement. From an institution I didn't recognize. And at the top corner, Alex's name. Only his. The balance read $8,600,000. I blinked, certain I'd misread it. $8.6 million. No joint ownership, no mention of me anywhere. Flipping through more pages, I saw the pattern, regular transfers, growing over the past year. Each one siphoning money from our shared accounts, quietly moved into this secret one. Hidden assets. Hidden wealth. And he'd planned to make me sign the divorce papers before I ever discovered it. My thoughts snapped back to David, his panicked voice, his warning not to sign anything, his frustration when he realized Alex had acted too soon. He must have known. He knew what Alex was trying to do, and he knew that legally, half of that money was mine. If Alex had already filed, he'd probably told David I was clueless, compliant, and out of the picture. But now I wasn't. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let him get away with this. I stared down at the bank statement trembling in my hands, the bold numbers glaring back at me. $8.6 million. A fortune. A betrayal. And now, my only leverage. I grabbed my phone, my reflection flickering in the dark screen. This time, I wasn't calling Alex. I was calling David back. And this time, he was going to tell me everything. I stared down at the bank statement in disbelief, my pulse roaring in my ears. Alex had been moving money for over a year, quietly, methodically, siphoning funds into a secret account under only his name. An account I hadn't even known existed until now. It wasn't just greed. It was betrayal. A white-hot surge of rage shot through me, not because of the money itself, but because of what it represented. 10 years of love, trust, and partnership, all built on a lie. While I'd been working, loving, and supporting him, Alex had been planning his escape, crafting the perfect exit strategy to erase me from his life and his fortune. My hands trembled, but my resolve hardened. I wasn't going to be his victim. I grabbed my phone, jaw clenched so tight it hurt, and called David Green. This time, I wasn't leaving the conversation without answers. The line rang once before he picked up. Kelly, he began, his voice taut, cautious. David, I cut in, my tone like ice. You told me not to sign anything. Not to talk to Alex. You panicked when I called earlier, and now I know why. There was a beat of silence, then a sharp exhale. You found it, didn't you? He said quietly. My fingers dug into the phone. The secret bank account. Oh, I found it, $8.6 million worth of secrets to be exact. And I assume that's just the beginning. So, David, you'd better start talking. Kelly, listen. No, you listen, I snapped, cutting him off. Alex tried to pull this off quietly. He thought I wouldn't notice. He planned to leave me with nothing. But now I know. And you, I paused, my voice shaking with fury, you knew too, didn't you? A low curse slipped from his lips. Fine, he muttered. You want the truth? Here it is. I held my breath. Alex has been preparing for this divorce for over a year, David said grimly. He's been shifting assets, hiding funds offshore, creating legal barriers to make it look like you were never entitled to any of it. My stomach turned. Why? I demanded. Why not just be honest instead of stabbing me in the back? David sighed heavily, the sound weary and resigned. Because he knew you'd fight him, Kelly. And if you fought, you'd win. I sucked in a sharp breath, fury rising in my chest. He knew I was entitled to half, I said bitterly. Let me guess, he was going to drag it out in court, bury me in legal fees, and make me so exhausted I'd take some tiny settlement and walk away. David hesitated. That was the plan, he admitted. I clenched my jaw so tightly my teeth ached. That son of a... But David cut in, his tone darkening. It's worse than that. He wasn't just planning to drain you financially, he was going to erase you. He told me he'd claim the money was entirely his, that every dollar was earned without your help. Legally, that would mean you weren't entitled to a single cent. My stomach twisted in disgust. All those years, every sacrifice, every late night spent supporting him, every moment I believed in us, and he'd been plotting to strip me of everything. This wasn't a divorce. It was an ambush, and now that I finally knew the truth, Alex Carter was about to learn what happens when the woman he underestimated decides to fight back. He was going to lie. David didn't need to answer, his silence said it all. I forced out a steadying breath and let the pieces fall into place. Alex thought he'd already won. He thought he'd outplayed me. But now the game had changed. David, I said carefully, the phone scratching against my palm, you're his lawyer. Why are you telling me this? A dry chuckle came down the line. Because your husband is an idiot, he said bluntly. The bluntness hit me like a slap. He doesn't listen, David went on. I warned him this was illegal. I told him if you found out, it would blow up in his face. But Alex thought he was untouchable, that you'd cry for a few weeks and then sign the papers. He sighed, exhausted. I guess he forgot who he married. A smirk tugged at my mouth despite myself. That, I realized, was Alex's fatal mistake. Kelly, David hesitated, his voice suddenly small, I shouldn't be saying this, but if you play your cards right, you could ruin him completely. My fingers tightened on the phone. Go on, I urged. You have something stronger than money, he said. You have proof, the bank statements, the transfers, the hidden accounts. If you take this to court, the judge will see right through him. His voice hardened. This isn't just about losing assets. If the evidence holds, Alex could face criminal charges for financial fraud. I closed my eyes and let the word settle, fraud. It felt heavier than theft, a deliberate, staged betrayal that made my chest ache. I had expected a bruising battle over money. I had not expected this, a criminal dimension that could destroy him. The thought should have sickened me, and in a way it did. But another feeling rose in its place, a cold, precise determination. A slow, calculated smile spread across my face. I had loved Alex once. Maybe part of me still did. But there was no room for tenderness now, only the need for justice. I had always tried to play fair, to believe in doing the right thing. Now fairness meant making sure he couldn't walk away with what wasn't his, or bury the truth beneath legal smoke and mirrors. I took a deep breath and made a decision. I wasn't just going to fight for what was mine. I was going to make sure he paid for what he'd done. I was going to bury him. I ended the call with a rational calm I didn't feel, my pulse still loud in my ears, and then I hung up. David had confirmed the worst, Alex hadn't simply blindsided me. He'd spent more than a year planning an exit, shifting funds, erecting legal barriers, a deliberate effort to erase me from everything we'd built. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I wouldn't fight. He was wrong. I dropped to the floor of his office and laid the documents out around me like evidence in a case file. Bank transfers. Offshore accounts. An $8.6 million balance tied only to his name. Page after page of transactions that traced a year of secrecy. This was not only betrayal, it was fraud. I had to be careful. If Alex realized I'd found this, he'd bury the trail. My hands shook as I took out my phone and started photographing every page, every stamped date, every line showing the transfers. Then I made copies, emailed them to myself, uploaded them to a secure cloud folder, and sent them to the one person I trusted who had access to his office, Lisa. Along with the files I typed one short message: Lisa, hold these. If anything happens to me or I lose access, send them to David Green immediately. Her reply came almost instantly. Kelly, what the hell is this? Yep, I answered. He was hiding this much. And now I'm going to make sure he pays. There was a beat of silence, then, whatever you need. I've got your back. I let out a hollow laugh that sounded more like a release than relief. Good, I thought. Because I was about to start a war. I knew where Alex was, the company penthouse downtown, a refuge from the mess he'd made. He was hiding out, convinced that by the time the paperwork arrived I'd be exhausted and compliant. He had badly underestimated me. I stood up, squared my shoulders, and closed the file. No more running. No more pretending this was anything other than what it was, a calculated attempt to steal my life. And I was done letting him get away with it. I shoved the bank statements into my purse and drove straight to the penthouse. The doorman barely glanced up when I walked in, the kind of casual recognition that came from seeing the same people in and out of that building for years. Alex was in for a surprise. The elevator hummed up. My heart hammered so loudly I could feel it in my throat. When I reached his door I didn't knock. He'd forgotten to take the key card back from the night he'd stayed late. I slid it, the lock clicked, and I pushed the door open. He was on the couch, drink in hand, lounging like a man who'd done nothing wrong. The apartment smelled faintly of old cologne and expensive ashtrays. He looked up, annoyance tightening his features. Kelly, he said flatly, setting his glass down. What the hell are you doing here? I didn't answer. I walked straight to the coffee table and dumped the stack of papers in front of him. They fanned out like accusation. He glanced down, then up at me. Color drained from his face. Where did you get these? He asked, voice small for the first time. I crossed my arms. You really thought I wouldn't find out? He let out a brittle laugh. Kelly, you don't understand. Oh, I understand, I cut him off. I understand that while I was being a loyal, loving wife, you were funneling millions into an account in your name alone. I understand you plan to file, get me to sign, and walk away with everything. His jaw tightened. This is none of your business. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. None of my business. We're married, Alex. That means half of everything is legally mine. His eyes darkened. Not if I can prove it was mine to begin with. I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. And how do you think a judge is going to react when they see these? I tapped the top sheet, transfers, dates, the bank name, his signature. Transfers made during our marriage. Accounts you never disclosed. Money you were legally required to share. He snapped, you have no proof. I didn't let him finish. I have proof, I said. And more important, I have David. For the first time since I'd walked in, I saw real fear in him. He went still, the glass in his hand suddenly fragile. He opened his mouth, closed it, then forced out a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. You wouldn't. You underestimate me, I said quietly. You misjudged how far I'd go. You thought you were untouchable. You thought I'd be too numb to fight. A slow, hard edge hardened my voice. You were wrong. He stared at the papers, then at me, and for once he had nothing to say. David wouldn't, Alex started, but I cut him off with a smirk. Oh, but he did, I said, my voice steady and sharp. Your own lawyer told me everything, how you planned to lie, how you thought you could drag this out in court until I got tired and gave up. Alex's jaw tightened. His hand curled into a fist. That idiot, he hissed through his teeth. That idiot, I shot back, knows you screwed up. And he knows I have a legal right to half of everything you tried to hide. For a long, tense moment, Alex just stared at me, the silence between us thicker than ever. Then a cruel smile twisted across his face. You think you've won, he said, his voice low, dangerous. This isn't over, Kelly. I gathered the papers from the table, sliding them neatly back into the folder. You're right, I said, stepping toward the door. It's not over. It's just getting started. And then I left, leaving him alone in the ruins of the game he thought he'd already won. As the elevator doors closed, I could still hear his last words echoing in my mind, this isn't over, Kelly. It was meant to scare me, to make me second-guess myself. But it didn't. Not this time. He didn't realize that the woman he'd manipulated for years was gone. I wasn't the same naive wife he'd underestimated. I was done being silent. This time, I wasn't just fighting back, I was coming for everything I was owed. The next morning, I walked straight into David Green's office. The tension in the air was thick, the kind that only comes after too many secrets have been dragged into the light. He looked up from behind his desk, dark circles under his eyes, and sighed. "Kelly," he said, rubbing his temples. "I figured you'd be back." Without a word, I dropped a folder onto his desk, the one filled with bank statements, transfers, and proof of Alex's betrayal. "You told me I could ruin him," I said coolly. "Let's make sure that happens." David's brows lifted slightly as he opened the folder. He scanned the pages slowly, and I watched as his expression hardened, shifting from tired resignation to professional resolve. "You've been busy," he murmured. "I don't waste time," I replied. He shut the folder with a quiet thud and leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "All right," he said finally. "Let me be clear about what this means." I folded my arms, waiting. "Alex isn't just facing a financial loss," David said gravely. "He's looking at potential fraud charges. If we take this to court, he's not just going to lose the money, he could lose everything. His reputation, his business, even his freedom." I nodded slowly, my resolve solidifying. "And?" David met my eyes. "And if we move forward, you're not just getting half. Once the judge sees the evidence, the hidden accounts, the intentional deception, Alex could end up paying you more than 50%. For the first time in months, I felt the corner of my mouth lift into a real smile. "Good," I said softly. "Let's make sure he finally understands what it feels like to lose." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Good." David hesitated, concern flickering behind his glasses. "Kelly. Alex is desperate right now. He's not going to go down without a fight." I leaned forward, my tone razor-sharp. "Neither am I." That afternoon, we filed a full legal motion against Alex, not just for divorce, but for fraud, financial misconduct, and intentional deception. It was the kind of move that didn't just end a marriage, it detonated it. It didn't take long for the news to reach him. The judge nodded, eyes narrowing at Alex. I could practically feel the weight of that silence pressing down on him. I stole a glance his way, his jaw was locked so tight I thought it might crack. He was losing, and for the first time, he knew it. Then David delivered the final blow. "Your Honor," he said evenly, "given the deliberate attempt to conceal assets and deceive the court, we are also requesting punitive damages." Alex's lawyer shot up, panicked. "Objection." "Denied," the judge snapped before he could even finish. The sound of that single word echoed through the courtroom, final, absolute. Alex's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him as realization set in. The empire he had built on greed and deceit was crumbling, and I was standing right there, watching it fall. The judge adjusted his glasses, his tone grave and deliberate. "Given the evidence presented, I am inclined to rule in favor of Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice echoing through the courtroom. "Not only will she receive half of all marital assets, but due to Mr. Carter's deliberate attempt to conceal funds and commit financial fraud, she is entitled to an additional financial settlement." A murmur rippled through the room. Across the aisle, Alex's hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightening as his world collapsed piece by piece. I stood still, my pulse pounding, barely breathing as the judge continued his ruling. When the gavel finally struck, the sound was like thunder, sharp, final, and utterly satisfying. Alex had lost. Not just half, more. Because of his own greed. Because he thought he could outsmart me. My phone rang an hour later, an unknown number flashing on the screen. I didn't hesitate. I answered. "You crazy," Alex's voice exploded through the speaker, pure fury. I smiled, leaning back in my chair. "Hi, honey. Miss me? You went to the court? Are you out of your damn mind?" he shouted. "Oh, I figured since you wanted everything to go through lawyers," I said, my tone smooth and even, "I'd make it official." His breathing came hard and uneven on the other end, the sound of a man losing control. "You have no idea what you're doing," he hissed. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, Alex." My voice went cold, the anger beneath it steady and precise. "I'm taking what's mine. There was silence, then a low, bitter laugh. You think you've won, he spat. This is just a game to you, isn't it? I tilted my head, smiling faintly. No, Alex. This isn't a game. It's justice. And the best part. You played yourself. 2 weeks later, we were standing in court. Alex arrived in an expensive suit, flanked by a slick, overconfident attorney, the kind of man who thought charm could outmaneuver truth. He walked in with that same arrogant stride, but the confidence faded fast once the evidence hit the judge's desk. David stood beside me, calm and composed as always. When the judge began to review the documents, the bank statements, the offshore transfers, the hidden accounts, his expression hardened. Mr. Carter, the judge said finally, his tone sharp as glass. Would you like to explain why you failed to disclose these assets during the initial divorce filing? Alex shifted in his seat, color draining from his face. Those funds were from before the marriage, he stammered. David rose smoothly. Your Honor, these transfers began a year ago, well within the marriage. That makes them joint assets. My client is legally entitled to half, but this time, I was the one who had won. When the court adjourned, I gathered my files calmly, feeling an unfamiliar but powerful lightness in my chest. Years of anger, confusion, and betrayal seemed to fall away with every step I took toward the exit. Then I heard it. Kelly. His voice, low, hoarse, and stripped of arrogance. I turned slowly. Alex stood a few feet away, looking like a ghost of the man I once knew, pale, hollow, broken. His eyes were bloodshot, his posture defeated. Don't do this, he muttered. You already got what you wanted. I studied him for a long moment, then stepped closer until my words were just for him. No, Alex, I whispered. You got what you deserved. His face twisted, rage, guilt, and regret blending into one raw expression, but I didn't stay to watch it fade. I turned and walked away, heels clicking against the marble floor, each step sounding like closure. That day, I left the courthouse free. 10 years of lies, manipulation, and betrayal, gone. The weight I had carried for so long finally lifted, leaving nothing but quiet strength in its place. Alex, on the other hand, walked out a ruined man. The judge's ruling had gutted him. Not only did I receive half of everything, but the fraud charges tipped the scales further in my favor. The additional settlement meant I walked away with a fortune, while Alex walked away with nothing. And the world noticed. In his high-stakes world of finance and investors, word spread like wildfire. Alex Carter, once the golden boy of corporate success, was now the man who had tried to cheat his own wife and got caught. Investors pulled out. Clients disappeared. His company's stock plummeted. Within weeks, the empire he had built on lies began to crumble. Lisa, still working at his firm, kept me updated. She told me he was desperately trying to keep the business afloat, selling assets, making frantic calls that went unanswered. But without the hidden funds, he was cornered. Out of money, out of power, and out of options. Then came the final humiliation, he sold his penthouse. The same penthouse where he had once sneered at me, dripping with confidence, so sure he had everything under control. Now it was gone. And to make it even more poetic, his mistress, the one he had sacrificed everything for, vanished too. Lisa told me she left the moment the money ran out. Blocked his number. Moved on to someone wealthier. The woman he had gambled his marriage for had traded him like a bad stock. He lost his money, his company, his reputation, and her. All of it. Poetic justice. As for me, life had never felt more peaceful. With the settlement, I bought my dream home, not a penthouse, not a flashy mansion dripping in status, but a warm, quiet house, surrounded by trees and sunlight. A place that felt like mine. For the first time in years, I could breathe. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending everything was fine. No more wondering if the person beside me was secretly plotting against me. I had not only won the case, I had won myself back. One morning, I sat on my porch, sipping coffee as golden light filtered through the trees. My phone buzzed. A text. Alex. For a moment, I just stared at it. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Alex, can we talk? I huffed out a dry laugh. Talk. Where was that energy when he ended our marriage through a text message? Where was that voice when he was funneling millions into secret accounts behind my back? I typed my reply carefully, simple, final. Me, no need. I've already said everything I needed to. Have a good life, Alex. Then, without hesitation, I hit block. And just like that, for the first time in a decade, he was gone from my life. Completely. And this time, it was my choice.